MTG Scoundrels, it's in the cardboard. Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Modern Weekly. Today on the docket, we're already into the action with Temur Breach and Samwise Recruiter. A lot of people have been brewing new versions of the Samwise food decks, and this is just another one in the bin. Looks like we already have a Mishra's Bauble out. We've gone back and forth with fetches. Of course, finding a hedge maze here on the end step, as one does in today's modern format. Finding a surveil land. Temur Breach has been proving itself as one of the best decks in the format, if not the best deck in the format, though Ketramos is making a name for itself as well as of late in multiple versions. There's a Scalding Tarn. Scalding Tarn going to get cracked here, which should bring us to 20 to 16. Yep, there is the steam vents. Both colors online. Two mana into a Malevolent Rumble. Gonna mill 4 here, make an Eldrazi spawn, and choose 1 to bring to hand. Looks like Urza's Saga going to hand here. End step, Windswept Heath is gonna get cracked for the Samwise player. Finding a Lush Portico. Some surveilling to be done here as well. Keeping it top, untapping, drawing. Well, there's a rumble of their own there. There's a swamp. Speaking of, Malevolent Rumble. Oh, an Endurance, an Enduring Innocence, a Birthing Ritual, 2 Birthing Rituals. Very tempting to take one of those Birthing Rituals here, but really, taking the Endurance against the Breach deck is the way you really want to go, and that is what's taken. Passing here. Bauble getting cracked on the end step. Looks like there's a land on top for the Samwise player. There's the Urza Saga. Of course, we saw that get grabbed by the Rumble earlier. There is a Haywire Mite. And passing the turn. Verdant Catacombs being drawn here. That'll get played as the land for turn. That'll get cracked. That'll bring us to 16 all. Especially after finding that Temple Garden. into a Recruiter of the Guard here. An interesting piece of these Samwise Recruiter decks, being able to find every piece of the combo, as well as multiple pieces to hate on your opponent. In this case, finding a Cauldron Familiar. Passing the turn after that. Breach player drawing a card. Saga's going to go up to its second chapter. There's a Scalding Tarn. And passing. Another Verdant Catacombs. That'll get cracked. Bring us to 15 to 16. Finding a forest. Four mana available. Into a Recruiter of the Guard once again. What will it find here? Oh, looks like there's the Viserys here. So the Breach player has to be aware of the Endurance that's in hand and has now seen two pieces of the Samwise combo. And there is a Cauldron Familiar. That'll bring us to 16 to 15. Passing the turn. End step, cracking the Scalding Tarn. Finding an island. Making a dude. Untapping. Drawing. Trigger for the third chapter of the saga. Making another dude. Constructs to be specific. Deciding what to find. Probably going to find a Soul Guide Lantern. Yep, there it is. Soul Guide Lantern, a very good tool for Breach decks, because it targets a player. It does not, in fact, target, or specifically doesn't affect themselves, unless they want it to. Taking 2 off the Stomping Ground will bring us to 16 to 12. Construct rumbling in. Currently a 4-4, so that'll bring us to 12 all. And passing. Overgrown Tomb, bringing us to 10 to 12. Into a Gilded Goose. That'll come with the food. Interesting decision point here. You're trying to leave up enough mana to be able to Endurance, or at minimum have a green spell to pitch to Endurance in your hand. Which, there goes one of them. Here's a Samwise Gamgee. Though, in a lot of ways, you just got to force them to have it. There's a Viscera Seer in hand. Speaking of, Viscera Seer on the stack. There's an Unholy Heat that's going to target the Samwise Gamgee. But this is a dangerous spot for the Breach player. There's still an Endurance in hand that they know about, and 2 cards they don't know about. Court of Calling's off the table, only 2 green cards. Excuse me, 1 green creature and 1 Lush Portico. Need a 3rd green source. But they do know about the Endurance. There's a tapped Breeding Pool. Both Constructs here to rumble. Samwise player going to chump with a Recruiter. Taking 4, bringing us to 6 to 12. And passing. Ooh, there's the Court of Calling. Dryad Arbor for turn. And passing the turn. Now, one fun move there could have been possibly casting the Endurance and then courting. That is something as well that you can do. Obviously not doing it in that particular moment, but that is something that is open in case something happens in terms of trying to counter the Endurance when it comes down. Because of things like Grinding Station hitting the battlefield here. There are 2 Constructs trying to get in. And they are both 5/5s. Okay, looks like both constructs are going to get chump blocked here. So probably going to chump and then cord. Because you're trying to be proactive. There's the Court of Calling. Unholy Heat's going to target the Viserys here. And this is a cord for 2. Viserys here is going to sack to itself to scry 1. Court of Calling resolves. Probably still finding a Sam here. There is the Sam. Gilded Goose going to make a food here as well. With one of the mana from sacking the Eldrazi spawn. Untapping, drawing. A second food here is pretty nice. Two mana into a White Orchid Phantom. Looks like in response, Lightning Bolt's going to target the Samwise Gamgee. A little less than ideal. Now, we know there's a Rumble in hand and an Endurance. That White Orchid Phantom hitting the Stomping Ground. Yep, Endurance and Rumble in hand there. With the mana currently on board, the Samwise player can in fact Rumble and still leave Endurance up, which is a key thing here. This has been one heck of a match so far. Speaking of, there's a Malevolent Rumble. That'll bring a spawn. Ooh, there's a fun card indeed in Bright Glass Gearhulk. And a Cauldron Familiar going to the bin. Bright Glass Gearhulk, a new card from Aetherdrift, can find 2 cards, specifically artifact creatures or enchantments, mana value 1 or less. Which means it can in fact find Urza's Saga, Mox Opal, or in this case can find Cauldron Familiar and Viserys if need be, though it could also find other 1-mana hate cards. It is 1 or less even. Which is wild. It's definitely a card for the brewers out there. There's a Tameo, Inquisitive Student. I'll turn on any future Mox Ambers. Two Karnstrucks rumbling in. And they will block the Karnstrucks here with the Cauldron Familiar and the Eldrazi Spawn. Passing the turn. Still holding up Endurance mana. End step. Gonna bring back a cat. And I'll drain the opponent for 1. And make a food token on end step as well. Another Verdant Catacombs. Four mana. There is the Bright Glass Gearhulk. Finding a Pithing Needle for sure. Also finding a Haywire Mite. So it'll be interesting to see what card gets played here, whether it's Pithing Needle or Haywire Mite. Because there is an opposing Haywire Mite on the battlefield. But in a lot of ways, you're also trying to keep up Endurance. There's currently only 4 mana available. So Pithing Needle getting chosen here. Pithing Needle going to name the grinding station. And passing. There's a rumble. Breach going to the bin here. So that'll get taken by the rumble. And that was one of the key pieces that was needed. Otawara for turn. Attacking in, Tamiyo going to make a clue. Now both the White Orchid Phantom and the Gearhulk have first strike. Considering there is 3, 4, 5, 6 artifacts on the battlefield for the Breach player. Kind of makes sense to, yep, double block one of the Karnstrucks. And the cat will block the other. So one of the Karnstrucks will die here. The cat going to the bin. There is Underworld Breach. In response, Verdant Catacombs getting cracked. More than likely finding something untapped. In this case, finding a Temple Garden. Three mana. Breach still on the stack. There is an Endurance. That's about as well as you could have played it. Now you just have to hope the Breach player doesn't get too lucky. Haywire Might. It's going to exile the Pithing Needle, bringing us to 4-13. Grinding Station is going to sacrifice one of the Karnstrucks. Now the right play here is to cast that Emery. Soul Guide Lantern going to get cracked. Exile the bin, but in response, a cat is going to come back, bringing us to 5-12. The Breach player cutting it close. Oh, what are you doing? That's... Nope. That's a Haywire Might. Whoopsie daisy there. Okay, so actually casting the Emery. Of course, in a big tournament, definitely bring that up to a judge. Of course, here we are trying to show you as much of an optimum line as possible. And we're all friends here. Emery ETB, of course, milled a certain amount of cards. There's a Haywire Might. Leaving a Rumble in the bin. That'll untap the Grinding Station. Sacking a Clue. Okay. There's a Mox Opal. Exactly 3 artifacts. That will untap the Grinding Station. Mox Opal. I'm going to tap for a mana. Get sacked to the Grinding Station. Mill 3. So at this point, the Temur Breach player is going to continue over and over again casting the Mox Opal and exiling 3 cards out of the graveyard. Essentially on this next one, it absolutely needs to not be Thassa's Oracle. There's 2 mana. No Thassa's Oracle there. I realized the Thassa's Oracle had been milled over earlier and was shuffled into the bottom by the Endurance. But you still don't want to hit it too early. Especially considering how close the margins are. So those dice there showing that there is 3 blue mana, 1 green mana. Of course, being a play for a rumble. So if more cards are milled, there are more options there for the Breach player. 3 blue for a Sink into Stupor. That provides an extra card in the bin, putting the Dryad Arbor back to hand. And now we keep continuing the loop. A lot of places, you might see people already scoop at this point, but we want to show you how the win actually happens. It's still very close. Still looping. Oh, there's a swan song. I believe the extra card essentially has it here. Being that as soon as you hit Thassa's Oracle, you can keep it in the bin, and you can keep sacking the Mox Opal over and over. Pretty unlucky not to see it earlier. That's okay. And there it is. So, being that there are nothing in hand, there are only 3 cards in the bin. Mox Opal getting cast. Thassa's Oracle going to be left in the graveyard. Float the mana. Sack the Opal, mill the rest of the deck. And Thassa's Oracle going to give the win here. Game 1, going to Temur Breach. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. A hell of a first match here in this game. Of course, we will see some graveyard hate being brought in for both players, as well as some other options to stop the combo that is happening. But in a lot of ways, the Samwise deck just wants to go faster than the Breach deck, if at all possible. Because sometimes the Breach deck really has to play a little bit of tempo, counter your stuff till they can draw the pieces they need. And now we would like to thank our sponsors, starting with Arcane Artistry. The owner of Arcane Artistry happens to be playing there on the right with a wonderful show and tell mat. They make wonderful stained glass tokens, specifically clue, food, and treasures, and are looking to make more in the future. If you put them together, they do in fact make a panorama. Wonderful tokens. I use them all the time. So definitely check them out. Link in the description below. Now also check out our sponsors and hosts of the channel, Grove Warden Games. A wonderful place to storm out. Their TCG player link and store link are in the description. And last but not least, of course, check out our friend Sean Gerard, who made the wonderful art for this channel. So definitely check them out. Open to new art projects, email in the description below. And of course, check out our socials. We're at MTG Scoundrels on Twitter, Blue Sky, and on Facebook, if people still use that. So definitely check us out. Now, some of you may have been saying, wow, best decks in the format. Wow, sleeper decks in the format. How creative is that? You can do better than that. And the reality is, I haven't seen much of this in the video space, specifically towards Modern. Yes, obviously, there are some specific decks that everybody knows. Temur Breach, Boros Energy, the different Ketramos builds, whether it's Black-White Blink, Esper Blink. Heck, even Boros Energy has become a Mardu Energy list playing Ketramos at times. And of course, there is the Eldrazi ramp list as well that kind of fill out the top decks in the format. And of course, Dimir Midrange still sticking around in this format. Now, we have to be keeping our eyes towards the future because coming up here in March, we in fact have another ban and restricted announcement. And it'll be interesting to see what they ultimately do here. Now, of course, in a previous video, I have in fact stated that I think Grinding Station Underworld Breach needs a ban. Specifically, I highlighted Underworld Breach being the one that was most likely going to get banned out of the Temur Breach lists. My on-the-radar cards besides Underworld Breach, Mox Opal, would probably be, yeah, we have to think about Ketramos. I mean, Ketramos is generally fine, I think. You know, Dismember gets it, Exiling it gets it, in terms of Path to Exile, Prismatic Ending, as much as Prismatic Ending is a true cost of doing business. You're starting to see a rise of some of these domain lists, specifically trying to, using the Thrall to go ahead and tax ETBs in this format, which is a pretty solid option. However, Ketramos does look a little problematic. It's a card that really just makes mid-range lists go over the top in terms of their card advantage. Now, Black-White Blink was kind of just fine, if not good, with Overlord being its main piece of card advantage. Adding Ketramos has definitely raised the bar for this deck in terms of expectations. It really just creates so many opportunities to draw cards. And exiling stuff from graveyards, exiling things from the battlefield has always been a modern thing. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to ban it, but we have seen cards such as Up the Beanstalk be problematic before. Now, granted, that was more problematic because on Enter the Battlefield, it drew a card. And then on top of that, you printed the Evoke Elementals, which seems to also be a problem with Ketramos, specifically with Solitude. Another card you can look at, of course, is Sowing Mycospawn. That card has in fact been a terror and might take over the format if you ban some of the other stuff. Having access to that level of land destruction is just such a house. But I think one thing we can all agree on is that the ban and restricted announcements having specific dates throughout the year is a bit ridiculous. Not being able to move at the pace that you need to move to be able to deal with the problems of a format isn't good for anyone, as much as you're trying to promote a health of a format and people being able to specifically know that if they purchase their cards that they will be in the format of which they choose to play them. I just think that in a faux capitalistic state that we currently live, that if you believe that and you believe you're going to receive a financial value on your investment that is equal to what you put in, you unfortunately are naive in that case. And on top of that, there's 6 new standard sets coming out this year, multiple that are using Universes Beyond, and they really just want to bleed us dry of our money. That's how it works. That being said, I still play and love this game. So here we are. Looks like Temur Breach putting 2 cards away here. We'll be starting with Gilded Goose on the play. There's a Misty Rainforest that's going to get cracked. Ooh, there is a Mox Opal and a Mishra's Bauble as well. Both players keeping track of time. Funny to say that 40 minutes into this, but here we are. There is Emery, Lurker of the Loch. That'll mill 4. Passing the turn. Windswept Heath, that's going to get cracked. That'll bring us to 17 all. Finding a Temple Garden. And running out of Samwise Gamgee. End step. Bauble's going to get cracked here. I believe that was Recruiter of the Guard on top. There's a Mox Amber, which of course can be tapped for mana here, being that Emery is in play. 2 mana for a Malevolent Rumble. Ooh, there's Thassa's Oracle already going to the bin. Wouldn't be surprised if the Oracle is taken here, just to kind of protect it. Yep, Thassa's Oracle going to go to hand. That'll go ahead and also create an Eldrazi Spawn token. Emery getting tapped to recast the Mishra's Bauble. This is one of the many ways that the Temur Breach list, can claw its way back from being down to 5 cards. One mana, there's another Gilded Goose. That'll make a second food. And passing the turn. End step, Bauble, getting cracked. Looking at their own top of the deck. Not liking it. Going to go ahead and crack the Scalding Tarn here. Probably finding some form. Nope, just finding Steam Vents. Must not be running one of those Thundering Falls. Specifically the Surveil land. So that brings us to 17 to 16. Drawing and drawing for Bauble. Not in that order. Emery's going to get activated. Casting the Bauble. Playing a Misty Rainforest for turn. No shortage of mana here. In passing, end step, Court of Calling. Are we just going to go find the second piece of the combo here? Yep, finding the Cauldron Familiar. That'll bring us to 18 to 15. Finding the cat here off the court is interesting. That makes you think either the third piece is already in hand or there's another Court of Calling. Though currently, and there's 5-6 mana up for the Breach player. Though sometimes you just kind of have to YOLO it. And especially with a Recruiter of the Guard already in hand, you have some options. There's a Rumble. Another way to try to go find it. But yeah, that looks like there's a Cord in hand. And yep, that's... Sometimes you Cord for one. Finding the Viserys here, and that'll do it for game 2. That'll go to Samwise Recruiter. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. We appreciate you all watching as we move into game 3 here. The Samwise deck showing how quickly it can move, no matter the build. Because sometimes Temur Breach just doesn't have it, and sometimes they're just twiddling their thumbs. Now granted, that was also a mull to 5 we have to note. But if you want to be a better deck than Breach, sometimes you just have to move faster. Force them to have the interaction. Sometimes they have the interaction, and sometimes they just only have combo pieces, and sometimes they don't have either. So it's best to force them to make a move. Especially early on in the game. Both players looking at their 7s. And both players keeping. We're going to start with an Urza Saga into a Mishra's Bauble, into another Mishra's Bauble, into a Mox Amber. An aggressive start. There's a Verdant Catacombs getting cracked. Both players moving quickly because of the time. There's an Overgrown Tomb, which makes you think that the Samwise player has at least one of the combo pieces that requires black mana, which we kind of just saw there. The Bauble revealed it. Into a Gilded Goose. Bauble going after it again. Scalding Tarn as the land for turn. Into a Soul Guide Lantern. So now the Samwise player will have to pay attention to how many food they have to be able to work around this Soul Guide Lantern activation. Granted, that Verdant Catacombs should be exiled by that Soul Guide Lantern. There it is. Both players at 17 all after the crack of the Misty Rainforest for a breeding pool. Mox Amber currently turned off because there is no legendary creature on the battlefield. Speaking of, though, Emery Lurker of the Loch. That'll mill 4. In passing, 2 pieces of the puzzle already. There's a Shifting Woodland. Not a bad option in these decks. Sometimes you have to worry about how much mana you have to be able to activate it. But sometimes you just have to make a copy of a Sack Outlet or of Samwise Gamgee to get the combo going. Alright. Using 2 mana, here's a Birthing Ritual. Followed by a Cauldron Familiar. That'll drain for 1, bring us to 18 to 16. End step. Birthing Ritual. Wow, there's a Sam in there. Samwise Gamgee hitting the battlefield. Will Breach have an answer? Granted, Breach can also combo off very quickly, so we will see what happens. Floating a mana. Saga. Gonna get sacrificed and go searching. There is a Haywire Mite. Not a bad piece to have. And this will at least deal with Birthing Ritual. But as it sits, if Samwise hits a third land here, Emery going to get activated. Targeting a Mishra's Bauble. The Bauble going to get cast. Still 2 mana available. It's an odd spot. There's an Urza's Saga in hand. Nope, deciding to play the Hedge Maze to surveil. The Samwise player pumping their fist a bit here. Breach player putting it in the bin. Tapping the breeding pool. Exiling the Birthing Ritual. That'll bring us to 18 all. Well, the combo's in hand here. It's a matter of whether the Mox Amber gets tapped. Oh, goodness. There's another Emery. Four cards to the bin. Bauble getting activated. Untapping and drawing. There's the third land. Oh, there's a Haywire Mite in hand too. Okay. Haywire Mite, gonna get cast. That'll create a food. Exiling the Soul Cauldron. And showing the Viscera. And that'll do it. Game, set, match going to the underdog Samwise Recruiter. What a heck of a match. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend. And we will see you all next week.